Before sunrise on the Rio Negro, a jaguar steps through turtle tracks, while black water holds the reflection of a waiting caiman. This is the Amazon basin, 7 million square kilometers of drainage, a forest near 5.5 million, 60% of it inside Brazil. One thing organizes all of it. The water here does not just flow, it rises and falls as much as 10 meters a year, drowning the forest floor to the height of the treetops and then draining it dry. That rise and fall sets the hunting calendar for every predator in the forest. And the most complete killers here are not the ones with the largest teeth. Some carry none. What follows moves with the water, up into the drowned treetops, down to the falling waterline, into the history the river carries, through the black shallows, to the roof the flood never reaches. In the Várzea around Mamirawa, the whitewater forest the river drowns each year and feeds in the drowning. A slow, grey shadow, the length of a grown man, rises through the branches. In the dry months, those branches stood 3 meters above open ground. Now they are underwater, and the shadow climbs toward a surface that sits at the height of a treetop. It breaks that surface for a single swallowed gulp of air, then sinks again into the murky brown water. This is the arapaima, one of the largest freshwater fish on Earth, reaching 3 meters and 200 kilograms. Unlike almost everything it swims past, it cannot breathe the water it lives in. It must climb to the air every 10 to 20 minutes or drown in its own flooded forest. A fisher kneels in a wooden canoe in the first grey light, paddle laid across his knees, and reads those breaths the way another might read a clock. Each time a broad head breaks the surface among the drowned crowns, he marks a single stroke in a worn notebook. By the time the light turns gold, he holds a number. The count is repeated across the community and across the season, and it sets how many arapaima the year will give up and how many it will keep. The fish the fisher's name by its breath was, a generation ago, nearly emptied from these channels. The notebook is much of the reason it is here at all. Where the arapaima takes flesh, another giant hangs motionless in the same drowned crowns and waits for fruit. The tambaqui, deep-bodied and reaching some 30 kilograms, holds beneath a submerged canopy through the Várzea's fruiting season. When a rubber tree seed works loose from a branch and falls, not to the forest floor, because for these months there is no floor, but into the water, the fish takes it. Broad, molar-like teeth built for exactly this work crush the hard shell with an audible knock. Most seeds are ground to nothing. A few pass through whole, carried in the fish's gut down the flooded channels and released far from the parent tree. So the flood does a quiet and improbable thing. It lifts the river into the forest and lets a fish plant the next generation of trees. water feeds the forest back to itself. All this feeding draws a watcher to the edge. Along the exact line where the flood meets standing forest, a rust and cream raptor holds a low perch and reads the water as the fishers do. The black-collared hawk is a fish specialist, and the soles of its feet carry rough, spiny pads that grip prey too slick for an ordinary talon. It drops feet first to the surface, strikes, and lifts a fish clear in a single motion before returning to its branch to feed. The hawk hunts nowhere but this moving edge, the waterline the flood itself created, and pushes a little higher each night before dawn. In that sense, it is a predator the flood invented. A bird whose whole territory is a boundary that did not exist 3 months ago and will not exist 3 months from now. Order, of a kind, has begun to assemble out of the drowned confusion. The giant breathes, the fruit-eater plants, and the hawk works the seam between them. Below the hawk, the channel itself is being hunted. In the swollen main river at the height of the flood, a small grey dolphin breaks the coffee-coloured surface, shows the curve of a back, and is gone before the eye can fix on it. This is the tucuxi, a true river dolphin distinct from the larger pink river dolphin, social and quick, herding fish through water so dark that sight is nearly useless and sound does the hunting instead. It is one of the few predators that follows the flood out of the forest and into the open channel, reading the swollen river by echo and taking fish the others cannot reach. It is glimpsed far more often than it is seen, a surfacing, a ring of ripple, then gone. And in that, it is like much of what this forest keeps hidden, where the hunters are read long before they are watched. Then, by some change in the water that no instrument in the canoe records, the river crests. The surface that climbed all season holds for a single day, and then it begins to fall. And on a bank not yet dry, something has waited through all the high water for exactly this. The bank the falling river gives back is called the Prior, a pale shelf of silt and sand that surfaces by degrees as the water draws down, and along it, low to the wet ground with its chin almost in the mud, lies a jaguar. It has waited through the high months for the land to return, and when it moves, it does not break for the trees, but slides forward into the brown water until only the round ears and the level eyes ride the surface, and then even those are gone. The jaguar of the flooded forest is a swimmer. For its size, it carries the strongest bite of any big cat on earth, and it does not kill the way other great cats kill, at the throat. It drives the canines straight through the skull, or punches through the bony plates of a caiman's back, a single closing of the jaw that ends the matter. In the flooded forests around Mamurawa, the cat lives for months above the ground entirely, resting in the crowns and swimming the gaps between trees when the floor it was born to walk lies 10 meters beneath the surface. The biologist Emiliano Ramalho, working those drowned forests, documented jaguars with camera traps through high water. Cats resting in crowns, crossing channels, and treating the flooded forest not as a barrier, but as a hunting range. The cat hunts the prior because of what the prior gathers. Where the falling water has coaxed a green flush of new grass onto the drying bank, a herd grazes, heavy-bodied and unhurried, the largest rodent on Earth at up to 65 kilograms a head. The capybara is half a creature of the water, webbed between the toes, content to graze the very edge where land becomes river. And that edge is the jaguar's edge too, so that predator and prey are bound to a single line drawn by the falling flood. The herd feeds in loose order, and yet at every moment one head is up, ears turned, eyes on the tree shadow and the water both, because a capybara that grazes the waterline grazes inside the hunter's reach. The lifted head tells it plainly, the calm of the bank is borrowed, and the strike, when it comes, will come from the water the herd cannot do without. Not all the prey of the bank can be taken by a cat alone. Back where the prior meets standing forest, the ground itself seems to move, a low wall of dark backs pushing through the undergrowth, jaws clacking in warning, dozens of animals travelling as one. White-lipped peccaries cross the forest in bands of dozens and at times of several hundred, and a band this size is not prey in the ordinary sense. Massed and clacking, they have turned on cats and held their ground, so the jaguar that follows them must do what its size and its bite cannot do alone, which is wait. It reads the herd for the single animal that lags, the straggler at the wet margin, and it takes that one, or it takes none. The hunger of the bank does not always end in a kill. Sometimes it ends in patience held through the whole length of an afternoon. And the bank does not close for the night. As the last light leaves the water, a pale-breasted shape settles onto a low branch over the black shallows, and a broad head turns almost full circle, reading the dark. The spectacled owl is among the larger owls of the neotropics, and it works the same riverbank the cat works, only after the cat has gone to rest, taking the rodents and the bats and the small things that come to the water once the day's danger has passed. The waterline is hunted around the clock. The predators change shift, but the line does not. A strike too quiet to hear, and the bank that fed the swimmer by day feeds the owl by night. The falling water lays bare the tracks of all of this, the drag marks and the prints and the picked bones. But the same falling water lays bare something older, and along these very banks the silt remembers a time when they ran red for a reason that had nothing to do with any animal that hunts here. A time recorded in ledgers that still exist. In the low water months, when the river has drawn back into its channels and the backwaters stand as still as poured glass, a black caiman lies along a half-sunken log, more than 5 meters of dark hide, and the largest predator in the whole basin. It does not move through the heat of the afternoon, and it has little reason to. A hunter this size, able to take a capybara or a young jaguar at the water's edge, has almost nothing left to fear but one animal. For roughly 30 years, beginning in the 1940s, that animal came by boat with a lamp and a rifle, and it came for the skin. The hide of the black caiman, soft along the flanks and evenly scaled, fed a leather trade that ran from these channels to tanneries in Europe and North America, and the skins left the basin not in the hundreds, but in the millions. By the early 1970s, the largest reptile in South America had been hunted out of stretches of river it had held since long before the trade had a name. And in backwater after backwater, the orange eye shine simply went dark. The same lamps found the giant otter. Largest of the world's otters, at close to 2 meters from nose to tail, it lives in families that fish and rest together along one stretch of bank. And that closeness, the very thing that lets a family hold a length of river, made it easy to find and easier to empty. A single den taken in one morning. Its pelt, dense and dark, carried the highest price of anything in the trade. And across the 1950s and 1960s, tens of thousands of them left the basin. Until by the early 1970s, the river wolf, as the fishers once called it, had fallen silent along channels where families had fished for generations. Two of the basin's largest water hunters, the one that hunted alone by sheer size and the one that hunted as a family, had vanished from the same water at nearly the same time. In 1967, Brazil outlawed the commercial hunting of its wildlife, and the killing slowed, though it did not stop where a skin still carried a price and a river ran far from any official eye. What changed the arithmetic was not the law alone, but a place built to hold it. Late in the 20th century, the biologist José Marcio Ayres, studying a pale-faced uakari monkey found nowhere else, helped shape the Mamiroa Reserve around a blunt principle. The river-dwelling communities who knew the water best should help guard it. So, after dark, a Ribeirinho monitor cuts the motor, sweeps one beam across a backwater, and marks each answering pair of orange eyes in a damp tally book. Set beside the books before it, the count says what no single night could. Where the eye shine once went dark, it is returning, far slower than the trade emptied it, but climbing. The way the river climbs, a finger's width at a time. The recovery is real, and it is fragile. An arithmetic measured in decades rather than seasons. The black caiman has come back to Mamiroa in numbers that would have seemed impossible in 1970. And giant otter families fish again along banks their kind was taken from. Yet a population rebuilt across 50 years can be undone in fewer, and every hand holding a tally book knows it. Then the season turns. The first rains of the new year gather in the west. The water that fell all summer stirs and begins once more to climb into the trees. And it spreads downstream into the black shallows, the tea-dark backwaters where the current barely moves and the killing answers to neither size nor skin, where the most complete hunters of the flooded forest carry no great teeth at all, and some carry none. Where the new flood spreads into the Igapó, the blackwater forest stained the color of strong tea by the tannins of rotting leaves. The current all but stops, and the light gives out a hand's depth below the surface. And here the hunting changes its terms entirely. A long, blunt-headed shape moves along the drowned roots, not a true eel but a knife fish, near 2.5 meters long, and 4/5 of that body is given over to the organs that do its killing. When the zoologist C. David de Santana described a new species of these eels in 2019, he recorded a discharge of up to 860 volts, fired in bursts many times a second, enough to seize the muscles of a fish or a wading animal and hold them still. It has no need of teeth. It hunts in water too dark for eyes, sensing the faint electric fields of other living things and answering with a discharge that stuns the prey before it knows a hunter is near. An old fisher will not put a bare hand into these shallows at dusk, having felt the charge climb a wet paddle once and lock his arm to the shaft. And he does not need to feel it twice. Half buried in the same leaf litter lies a thing that looks more like waterlogged bark than an animal. A flattened, ridged shell, a neck fringed with ragged skin, a head shaped like a fallen leaf. The mata-mata does its killing by stillness alone. It lies motionless for hours until a fish drifts close to that wide, flat head, and then it opens its mouth and throat in an instant, and the sudden space pulls in a column of water and the fish with it, swallowed whole before the strike can register. There is no chewing. Its jaws are too weak to be a weapon and serve only to hold the door shut. A hunter that kills by making a hole in the water and letting the prey fall in. Where the flooded forest meets open backwater lies the heaviest snake on Earth. A green anaconda may pass 200 kilograms and stretch beyond 5 meters, and through the high water months it lies almost wholly submerged, only the eyes and nostrils set high on its head breaking the surface, while the rest hangs unseen in the stained water. Its method is pressure, and pressure alone. When a capybara or a caiman comes within reach, the snake takes hold with backward curved teeth made only to grip, throws its coils around the body, and tightens after each breath the prey lets out, closing the space a little further every time, until the blood can no longer move and the heart fails. The teeth do not kill. They keep the prey close while the body does the work. And the work is patient and total. In the pools, the falling water will later strand, where fish crowd into shrinking volumes. A red-bellied piranha hangs in a loose school, the one creature here that meets the legend with a mouth of interlocking blades. Yet the legend is mostly wrong. Through the flood, the piranha is more often hunted than hunter, prey to the caiman and the dolphin and the fishing birds. And it schools, not to attack in numbers, but to keep more eyes watching for danger. It scavenges the dead, takes the dying and the dropped fruit, and only where drought packs too many into too little water does the school turn the way the stories tell. Its teeth are real. The danger they pose is far smaller than the river's reputation for it. The last of these hunters carries teeth so small they are almost beside the point. After dark, the common vampire bat works low over the sleeping banks, lands on its wrists, finds warm skin with the heat-sensing pits in its nose, and opens a shallow wound so cleanly that the sleeper seldom wakes. It drinks little. The danger is saliva that keeps blood flowing and can carry disease onward. By first light, a fisher reads the neat, dark bead on a tethered animal's foot, the way he reads the water. The black shallows have hunters that barely need to be seen. Above them waits the one floor the flood never reaches. Above the highest floodline, above the reach of the water in even the largest year, stand the emergent trees, a scattered few that lift their crowns clear of the canopy into open sky, 40 and 50 meters over a forest floor that for half the year is no floor at all. but river. This is the one architecture the flood never touches, and it keeps its own hunter. Near the top of an emergent tree, the crested eagle holds a branch, near 80 centimeters tall, pale-headed, still in the way that only a predator with nothing above it can afford to be. It is one of the larger raptors of the neotropical canopy, and one of the least often seen. A single pair may hold many square kilometers of unbroken forest, and across that range it may go weeks between kills. It hunts by waiting and by listening, reading the leaves below for the shift of a monkey's weight or the slow stir of a sloth. And when it drops through layers that have never felt the flood, taking prey from branches the water will never reach. Higher still, on a platform of sticks built and rebuilt across years, sits the reason for all the patience. A single egg, and in time, a single chick. For the crested eagle raises one young at a time and feeds it for months after it can fly. A field team has lashed a camera to a neighboring trunk to watch that nest, and for days the screen holds nothing but the chick and the moving leaves. Then a parent drops in with a limp monkey in its feet, and a hand on the floating station notes the hour and the prey in a logbook, while the forest below floods and drains and floods once more. The roof of the forest runs on the slowest clock in it. The voice the eagle listens for belongs to the animal it hunts most often. Before the light has reached the lower canopy, the red howler monkey opens the day with a sound out of all proportion to its body. A long, rolling roar carried by an enlarged bone in the throat that lets an animal the size of a small dog be heard as far as 5 kilometers away through dense forest. The troops call to hold space between them, each family declaring the trees it feeds in, and a mother moves through her chosen crowns with an infant gripping the fur of her back, feeding on young leaves so poor in energy that the whole troop must rest for hours to digest them. That stillness is the danger. The same slowness that lets the howler live on leaves no other monkey can stomach is the slowness the eagle reads from above. And the voice that spaces the troops across the canopy is also the voice that tells a listening hunter exactly which crown to watch. What the roof drops, the water below receives. In the same emergent crowns, a toucan works the season's fruit, tilting its oversized bill to take what smaller birds cannot handle. For every fruit swallowed cleanly, pieces fall, husks and loosened seed turning down through 40 meters of leaf to the surface far beneath. Through the flood months, that surface is water, and what falls from the roof lands among the submerged crowns, where the deep-bodied fish wait to take it. So that the highest layer of the forest, the one the flood never reaches, feeds the lowest, the one made entirely of flood. The roof and the river, separated by the full height of the forest, turn out to be the same system seen from its two ends. And then the air over the canopy changes. The first rains of the turning year gather in the west, toucans move off ahead of the weather, and far below, in channels that have run low for months, the water stirs against the roots and begins once more to climb back into the trees. A year on, before first light near Mamirawa, the same fisher rests his paddle across his knees and reads the water again, and a broad head breaks the surface among the drowned crowns, one breath every 10 to 20 minutes, and another stroke goes into the worn notebook. The river has climbed 10 meters, fallen 10, and begun to climb once more. The jaguar swims the gaps between the crowns, the eel waits in the black shallows, the eagle holds the one branch the water never reaches. In the backwaters, the tally books fill, pair by pair of orange eyeshine, far slower than the trade emptied them. One head breaks the black water and is gone.